All right, so I was inspired by Nate. He did a video about this hobby being a financial money grab, and he was wondering how expensive the hobby really was. Just a moment. So I was inspired by his video, and he was like, "Oh, I feel like I need to buy all these books and this and that," and he was talking about Pathfinder and 13th Age and some other things. So that is what the companies want you to do. They want you to buy their books, and a lot of people, including myself, seem to get wrapped up with, oh, I want more books, I want more books. Then there are other people who still play their original Dungeons and Dragons with their house rules, and they're content with that. Now, he had asked, what do you need? Like, what do you really need? And things like that. And then he had mentioned that he went and bought the beginner's box miniatures with the 4 iconics. Which those 4 are actually included inside the beginner box as pawns. So again, he upgraded something that he didn't necessarily have to do. Now, and various people said you need a lot of different things. In fact, he even said in second, he's like, oh, the old games, seemed like they were much simpler, like you didn't need as much. And I think it's still that way. I look back to D&D 2nd edition, which they just re-released as 3 books. But back when 2nd edition came out, they still released a bunch of stuff. They had modules, various settings. They also had a book for each class. In fact, I have one for druids alone on my shelf right now. But they had a fighter book. They had race books. So you had a whole book about elves and dwarves and things like that. So this has been going on for 20 plus years. 20, 30 years. So this isn't anything new. Now, back to the original question of what is it you need to play? Well, Pathfinder fans know this. You don't need anything to play. There's a website, PFSRD, I think that's right. PFSRD, which is absolutely free. Every mechanic or rule that's been in their books is on that site. They have all the monsters on the site. I believe they have the NPCs. There's also apps on your phone, which I've shown before, that have all these things as well. Now, if you absolutely are thinking, I'm going to spend money on this, I want to play Pathfinder. Okay, you already have the beginner's box, which is a great buy. I mean, this tells you how to play the game, how to run the game. It's got a sample adventure, which you could also take inspiration from that to center adventures around if you plan on running the game. It also has pawns, which has goblins, orcs, dragons. I mean, it has all sorts of different pawns. It has all sorts of different heroes of different races and classes. You have the blank flip mat that you can draw on with dry erase markers. Dry erase markers are a few bucks. So this has everything. It has a basic set of dice. All you need is one set of dice. So really, if you just want to get into it and start playing, this has everything you need right here. Now, you're probably asking, well, what happens when I hit 5th level? You can house rule how you level up after that, create your own spells. You can go on pfsrd.com and look up the actual rules for passing those levels. Or just buy the core rulebook. Core rulebook has feats, spells, abilities, additional races, additional classes. Okay? Now, as a new player or a new GM, just stick to this book. Don't do anything else. Use your beginner box for monsters, and then use this. Okay? Has everything you need. Now, you might say, well, I want a different kind of monster. Well, most people would say go buy the monster manual. I will say learn how to reskin monsters. I do a lot of reskinning in my games for various reasons. One, I don't always feel like looking stuff up in these books. 2, I don't want things to be exactly how they're written in the books. I'd like things to be different. I don't want my players who have experience to sit there and go, oh, this is a blah, blah, blah. That's going to take about, 6 hits at this level to kill it. I don't want my players knowing that necessarily. So sometimes I'll reskin something, or I will take something from the book and tweak it a little bit for my game, just because. But anyways, so if you really want, though, like I said, you buy the core rule book, so you have all the basics, and you have, things a little bit further than the beginner box. You do that, and you can buy the bestiary, whatever you like to call it, so you can do that. So, I mean, really, if you're a GM, right here, that's all you need. You can run years of games with just these 2 books. And this brand new was $50, and this was $40, so that's $90 for these 2 books. I didn't pay that much. I got them both for, I think I got this for $30. I got this for like $22 or something. So I spent like $53 online. But those are the 2 things you need. Now, miniatures, you can buy miniatures. You can use the pawns from the beginner box, like I said before. You can do paper standees. Just find a picture. There's tutorials online, all free, on how to make them yourself. You could make tokens. You could buy 1-inch washers, cut the picture out and glue it onto the washers. I've seen people do that, and actually it worked really well at D&D Encounters. So there's a lot of things you can do that'll give you plenty of, of representation of everything. You won't have to spend a lot of money. Really under $60, $70, you could have everything you will ever need to play a game for years. If you're running the game as a GM, you'll need more than if you're playing in the game. What I like to do as a GM is I provide a bunch of miniatures for my players. If they can't find one they really like, go buy one to represent your character. That's it. So do that. I'll bring the book. I'll send you the website link, all that stuff. Let's make a character. Let's sit down and play. But I'll provide almost everything else as a GM. And it's case-by-case basis. It's what your group prefers. Now, if you're sitting down with a group of 4 or 5 players and you're the GM and the players say you should buy more miniatures, you shouldn't use washers, you shouldn't have to carry the load. In our 2nd edition game that I play with my brother-in-law, I bring the miniatures, I bring my 3 books. He has 3 books. And our DM's brother-in-law has the player's handbook, so we share the load a little bit, but yeah, I'll bring the miniatures, I mean, it all just kind of comes down to what works for your group. So another thing people get caught up in is they think they need the GM screen. You don't need a GM screen to play a game. You can play without one, completely open, like I'm sitting right here with you guys. Or you can just put up a couple books. Let's see, we used, back a while ago, I've done everything from using cardboard that I had taped correctly to shield my paperwork. Because that was the only thing I didn't want them to see, really, is my papers, my prep. I do have a GM screen. I've used that for other games too. I've used binders with clips, like there's a YouTube video of a guy making his own GM screen. So there's various things you can do to shield people from seeing your stuff. I think we used records before too, a couple cases of records. But yeah, so that's about it. You don't need to buy all the books or everything they put out. Most of the stuff that Paizo puts out is fluff. You know what I mean? You got all the campaign setting stuff, and if you never plan on running in Galarian, don't buy it, You've got the, armory and magic items and Dungeoneer's Handbook and all that, and that's fine, but a lot of that stuff is already in other books. For instance, a lot of the equipment in those books is in the Ultimate Equipment book that I have. NPC Codex. I mean, if you enjoy rolling up characters, roll up characters. Skip that book. You know, you don't need the second and third monster manual. Pretty much everything is in the first that you need. You know, so in fact, all of it is in the first. And if you want to think of like for instance, Cthulhu, I think is in the fourth one. I don't have the fourth one. So make it up. Take a monster in there that you think is really powerful or equal to it, tweak it, and make Cthulhu. Reskin it. Real simple. I have an addiction to buying the books. That's why I've spent however much, $200-$300 on my Pathfinder books, $400 maybe, tops. I've got all these Palladium fantasy books, you know. Again, most of those are about the setting, you know. Every game system is like that, where they release a lot of books, and you probably only need a few of the books, 2-3 of the books. As a new GM, it's probably easier to do a homebrew world as well, you know, and you start with the city, and then you just branch out. And I'll do another video about that actually after this, but yeah, you don't need miniatures, you don't need the GM screen, you don't need all the books, okay? You just need a couple of the books. You can improvise for a GM screen if you really want it, or use a folder, have your prep in the folder, and just open it when you need to refer to your prep, you know? But yeah, miniatures you don't need either. You can use tokens and go from there. So you could, and the tokens don't even have to have a picture on them. They could just have a number. So number 1 is this bad guy, or 1 through 4 are orcs, and 5 is a giant dragon. You know, you could do all sorts of different things to keep the costs down. But there's no need to spend a lot of money at all. And almost everything you could want for a game, you can get for free online. So just some simple rules to keep in mind. If you have any questions, you want to see me elaborate on any of it, let me know. I do plan on showing people how to save money with this hobby in the future. You can also go to the dollar store. There's a lot of things you can pick up at a dollar store that can be very helpful for running games and playing games. But yeah, so that's it. Have a good one.